Greetings everyone, welcome to the second day of 365 Days of Prog. Today we will be listening to Gryphon by Gryphon, their self-titled first album. It's gonna be a ride, so stay tuned and I'm gonna catch you after the intro.
Hi, my name's Naomi. I'm an avid progressive rock fan, but I'm a long ways from knowing all the prog albums out there. But this year, I'm gonna give it a try. This is 365 Days of Prog.
So first of all, we have to listen to the album for the first time, so you're just gonna have to sit through with me and look at my facial expressions as I hear the music for the first time. So without further ado, I'm gonna get my headphones and we're gonna give this one a listen.
If you'll come upstairs with me,
What just happened? Okay, this was definitely something. I don't know if I would categorize this as prog, mostly. I think it was mainly folk songs, and that makes quite a bunch of sense considering the fact that most of the songs in this album are rearrangements and re-envisionments of old English folk songs. So you would have expected from a prog band to give it, that rocky interpretations of these old songs, but you don't really do that on this album, and thus you kind of get the same old songs just put into album form and performed by Gryphon. That is to say, this is a very nice album. I really liked it, although I wouldn't necessarily judge this as a prog album, but I would judge this as good music overall, so that's pretty cool. So the first song on this album is Kemp's Jig, and I tend to look at the first song on the first album of a band as their hook, you might want to say, because if you're going to listen to their music, you want to listen to what they have to offer, and the first song you're going to hear from them will probably determine a lot of what you experience later on. And this first song definitely has that hook. It's pretty nice, it has those flutes, it gives you that environmentalish, old-timey, medieval sort of feeling, and that's pretty cool, so you get into it pretty fast, I must say. And yeah, it's a nice song. I really liked it. I'd probably listen to it again because it's pretty jolly and it's kind of interesting and unusual. So it would be a sin if I weren't talking about the woodwinds and the flutes in this album, which are really, really good, and they provide a great atmospherical sound throughout the entire album. So huge props have to be given to Brian Gallad and Richard Harvey for the woodwinds on this album. They're doing a great job at leading this album in the artistic direction they want to go, and it's really pretty nice. So I really liked it. I think most songs in this album have a flute on them, which means that this instrument is a leading instrument on this album, and it's pretty cool. But I do have to mention the one instrument which I think has topped everyone off in this album, and that has to go to the guitar. The guitar playing on this album is phenomenal, and I really liked it. It does maintain that atmospherical sound of the album, and it still gives you the vibe of medieval times, but the guitar is just fantastic. And I have to say, my favorite song on this album was the third track called Touch and Go, which is mainly a guitar piece. I think it might be like an entire guitar piece. I think I'm not really remembering it quite well, but I know that I liked it very much. It has the same vibe as some of the Genesis songs like Horizons and After the Ordeal in some way. and it reminded me mostly of Stationary Traveler by Camel, which all of those songs I truly love to bits. So this song definitely gave me that vibe, and it's gonna become a regular on my playlist, I can already tell. A fun fact about this album, the 5th track on this album, called Pastime with Good Company, was actually written by King Henry VIII of England. So apparently royals back in those days would learn about music and literature, and they would write their own pieces. So this song became a great folk song in Britain because it was so catchy, and you know, like a few hundred years later we have this band covering it themselves and giving it their rendition, so it's pretty cool. So this album is an album I'm probably gonna listen to again, but not as a prog album, but mostly as a folk album, an old album with the old sound. It's pretty nice, but if I want to listen to some good old prog, this would probably not be my first choice. Before we move on to the rating of this album, I'm gonna tell you a bit about the cover. There is not a lot to talk about, although it is more intricate than yesterday's episode cover with God Bluff. I still think this cover has a bit going for it. So the first cover of a band means a lot when it comes to selling the albums to newcomers. So imagine yourself being in a record shop and looking for new albums, and you see this album. Would the cover intrigue me and make me want to buy it? And the answer here is fairly ambiguous. So the cover is pretty basic, in which you're not gonna miss a thing. It has Gryphon written on it. You can see a drawing of a Gryphon on it. So you know right away that this album is Gryphon. And the band name, well, probably is Gryphon as well. On the other hand, this album cover does not evoke much in me. It just is. And I guess it's nice, but I think you can get really creative and wild with cover albums sometimes. Did I just say cover albums? I think I meant album covers. Yes, that sounds right. So you can get really artistic with them, and you can hook your listener before they even listen to what you have to offer. So I think this album cover has a bit more to strive for. All that said, I don't think I can do a better job at it, so a big props to Dan Pierce for designing this album cover. And it's pretty cool, and I think he worked with the band later on in their other albums, which we will get to in this list. So all in all, this album receives a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a pretty neat album, but as I said, I don't really categorize it as prog music. It's just mostly folk music. Although it's pretty good folk music, it's still not what I'm looking for. I would probably come back to this album, not in the meanwhile at least, but maybe in the future. And for now, it has been a great listen, but it wasn't perfect by any means. So stay tuned for tomorrow's episode. We will be listening to this name, which I do not know how to pronounce. Yeah, totally. Okay, that name. But until then, I wish you all a great day, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye guys.